Hello, and welcome again to another edition of Public Affairs, Public Access. I'm your guest host, David Hutzelman. This is a show where we kind of treat things from a libertarian perspective, and sometimes I'm asked, what exactly is a libertarian perspective anyway? And so I try to do a little monologue here about how libertarians are basically people that are in favor of limited government. They're in favor of economic freedom, they're in favor of personal freedom, and they're in favor of mostly less international intervention, thinking we don't have the solution to all the world's problems, and certainly not the ability or the practicality to impose our ideas by force on other people. And not all libertarians are members of the Libertarian Party. A lot of libertarians don't even think they should be allowed to vote because it is an unethical use of physical force against other people. But by and large, we're in favor of free market economies, a lot of self-determination, and not the over-regulated crony capitalism that we have today in the economy, but a genuine free market economy. And of course, the ability of people to follow their own lifestyles, and as long as they're peaceful and not interfering with other people's lifestyles. So tonight we have a couple of distinguished panelists who are on the front lines of the fight for certain civil liberties, and one of those civil liberties is what you choose to ingest in your body. And so tonight is the subject that we're going to be talking about marijuana laws and drug laws in general, and maybe a little bit about a corresponding issue of civil asset forfeiture. And to help me discuss these issues tonight, I have two of my distinguished panelists here. On my left is Ann Lee, who is the founder or co-founder of an organization called RAMP, which is Republicans Against Marijuana Prohibition. And although we might not normally think of that as a Republican issue, Ann has been a forerunner in the idea to bring that forward in the Republican Party. And also on the panel tonight is Mark Ash. Mark is a criminal defense attorney who has had a number of experiences and issues with the marijuana legalization and criminalization, and it was the past Libertarian Party candidate for the State Criminal Court of Appeals in Texas. I don't mean to seem like we're ganging up on the party that's not here tonight, the Democratic Party. Just let me say that I have an open invitation from anybody in the Democratic Party which would like to contact me for letting us view their similar views on this issue as well. So let me start into this issue by asking Ann to talk to us a little bit about what got her interested in this issue and why she chose the Republican Party to be a spokesperson for this point of view. So, Ann?
I've been a Republican. Well, I first became a precinct chairman here in Harris County in 1970, long before my involvement with the marijuana issue. The Republican Party, as I see it, is one that believes in smaller government, fiscal responsibility, and individual accountability, and prohibition just negates every one of those. So in the view of my husband and myself is prohibition is not a conservative issue. It is a nanny-state progressive issue. That's my belief about what prohibition is. And so but I did not even always recognize this, but in June of 1990, our fourth son, he was then 28, had an accident that put him in a wheelchair as a paraplegic. While he was in TIR, the hospital here, the Texas Institute for Rehab and Rehabilitation, TIR, he chanced upon an article in their library by two doctors who were doing some research with marijuana and spasticity. Spasms have always been a real problem for Richard. In fact, his brothers who have been with him a lot more at this said they almost knock him out of a bed. The spasms can be so bad. And the marijuana is good for that. And so it was in August of 1990 that Richard looked at us, his father and me, and said, Mom and Dad, marijuana is good for me. And if there's anything I did not want to hear, it was that. Because I had fallen hook, line, and sinker to the lies and propaganda put out by my government about marijuana. But even if marijuana was bad, and it's not, it's safer than alcohol, prohibition is not the answer, should never be the answer. Prohibition just causes more problems, as we've learned with alcohol. Now, the analogy I always do with alcohol is that they found out with alcohol it was far easier for a kid to get alcohol because what license did a saloon keeper need? So what license does a drug dealer need to sell your kid marijuana? And that's what prohibition does. So my belief, and the belief of my husband, is that marijuana should be taxed, controlled, and regulated like you do alcohol and tobacco. And that's the bottom line here. I don't think anything says it better than that.
Okay, well, thank you. Mark, you've been in the courtroom a lot of times with clients who have been brought in into the criminal justice system because of marijuana possession or sale or whatever else. How have your experiences tallied up with what Ann is talking about, and how has that affected your view on what we should be doing about the marijuana laws?
Well, I've always believed that people should not be charged for crimes that don't hurt others other than themselves, and even then it may not hurt themselves. Too many people have been charged with possession of marijuana in Harris County. It's used up valuable resources of our judicial system. As a criminal defense lawyer, I've represented many, many people who've been charged with possession of marijuana, and they have had to go through the judicial system process, and I believe it was really, by far in the vast majority of cases, totally unnecessary. I don't think that our valuable judicial resources should be used for that, for somebody possessing marijuana.
As well as police resources.
Well, it's the police resources, it's the jail resources, it's the resources of the judicial system, and it affects the person who's charged, their family, and it's a tax, a heavy tax, I want to say a very heavy tax on the system. That is already heavily taxed with other kinds of cases that would be more appropriate for a criminal justice system.
Good. I heard a report today, or somebody saying that, who is basically talking about the benefits of getting marijuana off a Schedule I drug, that about half of our prison population today is in jail because of drug-related offenses. Is that?
You're partially correct. The federal system, for a long time, in Federal Bureau of Prisons and the federal charges were mostly drug charges. That's now changed. Now, most of the people who are in federal prison are in federal prison because of drug charges and immigration violations, the illegal reentry cases.
I see.
The feds have come to realize that that reputation of 80% of the federal prisoners were there because of drug charges, either possession, manufacture, distribution, yes, was giving a bad rap, a bad reputation for the federal prison system. So the focus of the last 8 years has been on trying to reduce the number as a percentage of possession charges, and now adding illegal reentry and immigration violations.
I see.
So the focus has changed somewhat to that kind of a crime. But yes, you are correct. That was for a long time in the federal system. A large percentage were that.
I wonder whether that, with the days of whatever budgets at all governmental levels being strapped, and one of the major components of that is the prison system in terms of
Yeah,
keeping things.
when
Sounds like a good way to solve some of the budget crisis, as well as what others of us would be considered to be an unnecessary infringement on people's rights in the first place.
yes, the money that's being spent to house somebody in the prison system for possession cases, manufacturing, distribution cases, is could be used for other purposes.
Okay, very good. Well, Ann, in terms of, and we'd probably need to tell our viewers, not only, this is, remind them, this is a call-in show as well as listening to what we're saying here. So if you have any questions of either of these panelists or myself, please give us a call. We'd be glad to incorporate your question and answer into the proceedings as we go along. So I think we do have a caller right now. Yes, caller, could you tell us who you are and what your question is?
Yes, hi. My name is Alex Shaskovich. I know Ms. Ann Lee. I was a precinct chairman myself with the Harris County Republican Party for many, many years. And I want to thank you, Ms. Lee, for your service, and I also want to thank you for being on this program. And also, maybe the viewers don't know this, Ms. Lee was spearheading the effort at the last state convention. What was it, last day, or was it the convention before? But she has been the spearhead of marijuana, as a matter of fact, medical marijuana, for many, many years. And I actually was state convention before last convention. She was there. I'm just kind of curious, Ms. Lee, are you going to, I assume you would, like to lobby some of the state legislators to have legalization of marijuana? And if there is any, I'm just kind of curious, is there any particular legislators that you're interested in targeting that that you bring forth this effort, legalization effort, kind of similar that I would say that the kind that's in Colorado? So that's my question here, is what is exactly, how is she going to be, is she going to be trying to go for a ballot initiative, or does she want to go take the route in which, go through the state legislature?
There's a group of organizations that are supporting marijuana, reform of marijuana laws, I will call it. I'll give it a broad base. And they have come up, this group has come up with some particular legislation which they are supporting, and I will go along with that. I'm not going to try to blaze a new trail. I'm a team player in this. The whole thing that my husband and I realized, and we realized this back at a normal convention, out of which RAMP came, is that when on a panel of 5, 3 of us were Republicans, and my husband and I was talking about this, and we started thinking about what it is to be a Republican. And if you are a true Republican, if you're a true conservative, you do not support prohibition. Prohibition is very much of a progressive nanny state philosophy. So we came back to Houston. That was in August of 2012. The reason I know it so well, it was October of 2012, because that was in our 4th son, Richard, who was the one who, after he had his accident, needed marijuana, got and I laughingly say, got me in the marijuana business. He turned 50 that October. And we came back, and my husband thought of the word RAMP, putting it all together. We borrowed from LEAP, if you're familiar with Law Enforcement Against Prohibition. We came up with the word RAMP, and we came back to Houston. And yeah, many people said it was a good idea and so on, but it would not have gotten where it has today if the young people, particularly the people we call the YRs, the young Republicans, they took it on as their issue. And there are 3 young people by the name of John Balcom, Zoe Russell, and Jason Miller, who took this as their issue. And they, as I always say, they gave it the wings to fly. And so from there, we've gone on with it.
Okay. I guess I should remind the caller that unfortunately in Texas we don't have initiative and referendum.
Correct.
So there's no way of getting, at least of the citizens, getting some sort of a marijuana referendum on the ballot. So we have to depend on the state legislatures. Those are the only people that can put an issue on the ballot for us to vote on. And actually there are a handful of very good state legislatures who have done exactly that. One of them who was in the last session anyway, David Simpson out of Longview, had advocated that marijuana be regulated like any other agricultural product, like tomatoes and corn and things like that. So even though that bill was filed, I don't think it was ever actually voted on. But there are a number of other people on both sides of the aisle in the Texas legislature who favor marijuana decriminalization.
Harold Dutton has done that for sure.
Is that right?
Harold Dutton from Harris County, as well as,
John Whitmire? No?
no, the other state, the other black African-American, great guy.
Oh, Ellis?
No, not Ellis was in the Senate.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Right offhand. But anyway.
The two of them have always supported and have filed bills on this particular issue. But we have found some Republicans who are on this. When we point out the fact that it is not conservative to support prohibition, all I'm asking people to do is to think about it. Just think about the issue. And the two people that I'm working the hardest on right now is my own state senator, Joan Huffman, and my state rep, Sarah Davis, is to get them to come on board. I'm not sure where I am with them, but it doesn't mean I will stop trying.
Okay. Well, of course, there's a number of states that have already decriminalized marijuana. There's 23 states and the District of Columbia, as I understand it, that have legalized various aspects of marijuana. Some of them have to do with just medical marijuana, and other ones have to do with recreational marijuana as well. But I guess I'm concerned and I'm pleased that RAMP does not make a distinction between medical marijuana and adult recreational marijuana.
We're opposed to the prohibition.
Okay.
It's not a conservative philosophy. Prohibition is just not conservative at all. So that's where we stand.
Okay, very good. All right. Well,
Okay,
Mark.
thank you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, thanks, caller. Appreciate your call in.
Thank you, Alex.
In terms of decriminalizing marijuana, what if we do get to a place where either medical or recreational marijuana is repealed, the regulations against it, what happens to the people that are already been incarcerated for violating these laws? I don't know what happened in alcohol prohibition once they stopped alcohol prohibition, where the bootleggers actually let out of jail, or what do we do with the people that were convicted before?
Well, that's really up to the state legislature to decide whether they will expunge those criminal records, or should I say allow for the expungement of those criminal records. There were the case of the segregation cases of the 1950s with Rosa Parks, which people were ticketed for various offenses against the segregation laws, and many of those records were never expunged. They're still available for people to see. I think the state of Georgia has allowed some people to expunge those records. I would think that if we do decriminalize or legalize, the state legislature should pass a law allowing for the expungement of possession of marijuana cases. And the expungement process would actually be even a benefit to the state, because there would be filing fees involved in filing for expungements in the civil court. And then the records would then be erased and not be made available to the public. Now, expungement is sometimes not looked upon as being necessarily a good remedy, because in our computer age, many of those records are available in private computers. private computer databases, I should say. And but the expungement order would order that those private companies that have that record in their databases, that they erase it and not make it available to the public. But again, you know, if it's out there, it could be out there. I mean, you never can completely erase something. You can't unring a bell, as the expression goes. But yes, I think that's a very important aspect of legalization and decriminalization, that we do provide for that.
Well, I believe that the Texas legislature some years ago gave individual counties the right for a cite and release policy for certain amounts of marijuana. I'm not really sure whether that was 1 or 2 ounces or what, but I think only Travis County, as far as I knew, were the ones that accepted that. But I'm just wondering, wouldn't that be a very big step forward in terms of?
It is. Harris County has the First Chance program at this point.
First Chance, is that?
Yeah, and First Chance is.
Was that something that Devin Anderson had?
Yes, it was started under the previous district attorney, Devin Anderson, and of course the new district attorney is continuing with it. I don't know what her present policy is. Whether she made a campaign promise that she would not charge people with POM, possession of marijuana cases. But I have looked at the website, and since January 1st, since she's been in office, there have been numerous people charged with POM cases.
Was it a certain amount? I heard the amount 4 ounces or something.
Well, no. Yeah, her campaign promise was, yes, if people had less than 4 ounces.
Okay.
That was her campaign promise. But people are being charged with POM cases of less than 4 ounces.
Oh, they are, okay.
So it's not that nobody's being charged. So I don't know if she's going to come out with that policy. But at this point, the policy is, if you do not have a criminal record, you can participate in the First Chance program and take.
Which is what, Mark?
Which is, you take a class, and it's an 8-hour class, and not have any new additional charges during a 90-day period, and you're not charged. If you pick up a case, you are charged with a new case during that 9-day period, or you don't take the class, then you could be charged with the original charge of possession of marijuana. So that's the First Chance program that has been going on for, I think, about 2.5 years.
Okay.
In Harris County. Now, other counties have had it for a while. Travis County has had it longer. Other counties in Texas do not have it at all.
Yeah, right.
This is on a county-by-county basis, and it's up to the particular district attorney to set up the program.
I see. So it's a call of the district attorney?
It's a call of the district attorney's office.
Wow.
So
okay.
That's a very important race in the county, who is going to be our district attorney, and what his or her policies are with respect to charges that can be filed, because it's discretionary with the district attorney's office. A lot of people do not understand that it's not the police that actually charge you. The police refer the case to the district attorney, and then the district attorney accepts or rejects charges, or decides which charges to be filed, if any, or can put you, like I explained earlier, in the First Chance program.
I see. Very good.
Well, that's a very important political position. I don't think that many people really recognize how important it is that we know what the DA is doing and what he or she's up to.
I see. Interesting. Well,
I just remember the name that I couldn't remember, so I want to bring it up. Garnet Coleman,
Garnet Coleman,
as well as Harold Dutton, are the two Democrat legislators from Harris County who have long been on board with some form of reform of marijuana laws.
Okay. Do you keep in contact, Dan, with some of the marijuana legalization efforts in other states? And can you give us any feedback from any of those places in terms of the reports that either that we hear or maybe you hear informally about any of the issues or problems that have arisen as a result of those states?
The only state that I have kept up with at all is California, because that's where our son moved when he realized that marijuana would help him with his spasticity, he moved to Oakland, California. Has done quite well as an entrepreneur in the marijuana business in Oakland. Coined the term Oaksterdam, founded Oaksterdam University, also called OU, and I should have brought it. The crest that they have done, he took it. It's a takeoff on Harvard's crest for OU, and he said it's still a going concern. He was raided in Oakland and then sold his business because they thought because he had been so out front and center on the Prop 19 to work on to do in California, which has since been done in Colorado, in which now California has done, that they figured that he was being targeted, so that he sold the business, but he still lives out there and still teaches at OU and is very much involved in the whole issue and knows it better than I do.
I see.
What has happened. But I just got a newsletter from some friends of his who live in Oakland or close to Oakland and have been very much involved in this issue. And of course, they're pleased with the fact that it was called Prop 64 in California did pass this time.
What did it convey?
It was basically to make marijuana not a crime to use it for any purpose.
Oh, okay. Recreational as well.
Right.
Okay.
Now, California passed medical marijuana a long time ago.
Right.
I think it was. Oh, I should have worn the pin. I have a pin from that campaign, and so they were the first ones that did it in California, and that's why, as I said, that's why Richard moved to Oakland, so that he could use it legally. Of course, it's still against the law federal-wise, but it was, as far as California was concerned, it was okay.
Mark, where do we see this federal-state controversy going as far as it relates to marijuana? As long as it's a Schedule I drug that the feds claim that they have the right to prohibit it, but yet evidently I don't know whether the Obama administration or someone in that administration had said that, well, the feds would not interfere with marijuana distribution in those states that had legalized it, although it still is basically remains a federal, something you can be prosecuted for by the federal government, even though the states have legalized it. Is that true?
Yes, that is true. Now, the Schedule I, a lot of people don't understand what the schedule is. Schedule I is the highest level. It's 1, and then they have 2, 3, and 4. And the highest level means they have absolutely, as far as the federal government is concerned, no medical purpose whatsoever. That's why it's on the highest schedule, at Schedule I. It's also considered the most dangerous drugs are on Schedule I, and then less dangerous as they go down to 2, 3, and 4. The federal government can decide whether they want to prosecute cases or not. That's up to them. My understanding was that the Obama administration would not prosecute cases of marijuana in those states that have legalized it, like Colorado and Alaska and Oregon and now California. But the focus was to be more on transporting it between states and, of course, transporting it across the border. And I think that there is less of a demand to transport it across the border as more and more states legalize it,
right,
because it's much easier to transport it across a state line, which is not considered a border.
I understand the quality issue has also come into play.
The quality issue does come into play. The demand for legal weed is always going to be more than the one from illegal. You know what you're buying when you're buying something legal versus illegal. But the feds have focused somewhat on the interstate transportation. But the feds also have decided to focus on other drugs other than marijuana because it is so unpopular enforcement.
Unpopular to prosecute it, you mean?
Unpopular in the public to prosecute that particular drug.
Yeah.
It's more popular to try to prosecute other drugs than marijuana because it's not considered as dangerous as other drugs are.
Right.
Again, that's up to the executive branch, and the executive branch can decide how and what cases they want to prosecute and when and where.
Is that an executive branch prerogative that Donald Trump could actually cause marijuana to be removed from Schedule 1?
It's an executive prerogative to decide whether it's prosecuted or not.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. But whether it's even on that schedule, how did it get on that
That's
schedule?
a regulatory process, and yes, he could appoint people in his administration to change that.
To change that, okay. Yeah, he can't just do that with maybe an executive order or something.
I do not believe he can.
Okay, because it's, okay.
I think there's a regulatory process that you have to go through.
And I understand, though, that it's, that marijuana is legal in District of Columbia. Now, who had to legalize that in the District of Columbia?
I think that was a local vote. I'm not very familiar with it.
I mean, Congress has the oversight for the District of
Yeah.
Columbia, right? So, I mean...
But they have given some power.
Oh, they
some local
delegated
power.
that out, so they don't have to live with the the decision that they did that. I think maybe some of the school choice issues are the same way, that locally they have decided to institute some kinds of charters and other school choice that maybe would have been hard to get Congress to actually agree to pass as far as D.C. is concerned.
It is kind of funny that the federal government will prosecute cases far away from Washington, but not in Washington.
Yeah, right.
No.
Just nothing. There's nothing inconsistent about politicians, right? I mean, that's the norm, not the difference.
Well, the federal government changed its stance a great deal on this issue because in 2010, when we were working on what was called Prop 19 in California, which was for marijuana in California, which has since been done in Colorado and now been done in California. But Eric Holder made it known that he was not going to abide by any vote that went in California, that they would have a hard time reaping the profits from it and so on. And it was my son was very much, because that was his issue, and we worked very hard. I was out there working on that issue, and at that time, and I made the statement. I was being interviewed by the Oakland paper. They thought it was really a hoot and a half that this 80-year-old conservative Republican was coming out to work on Prop 19 in favor of it. And I'm in the interview, I made the statement. I said, the drug war is so bad, it's the most racist thing we've had since Jim Crow. Now, I grew up with Jim Crow. When I was growing up, it was actually against the law for whites and blacks to go to school together. That was the law. We've had bad law in this country. That is certainly an example of bad law. And the other example of bad law is the drug war, which has given us the new Jim Crow. And not long after I made that statement about it's so bad, it's as bad as the most racist thing since Jim Crow, there's a great book by Michelle Alexander came out called The New Jim Crow. She's a liberal ACLU lawyer, and I promoted her book all over the place because it was very factual. It documented everything, and she was as hard on Clinton as she was on the Bush, either one of the Bush presidents. And because Clinton was draconian on it. He was as I said, he was very draconian in his support of the drug war. No Republican was going to outlaw and on him. Mm-hmm. And so, but that's what happened. They changed their stance because then they did not make that same threat to Colorado when they were working on their issue.
Interesting. Well, in terms of some people characterizing the drug laws as a war on minorities, Mark, do you find that your clients that you have defended against marijuana laws, are they primarily minority candidates?
Many. I would say in doing court-appointed cases, the majority have been. But also, what's interesting is that they tend to focus on young people. 17 to 25-year-olds and of course minority, Black and Latino. And I find that the police focus more on them than would be people who would be older, more stable, have better jobs, that kind of thing. Now, it may be part of the explanation for that maybe it's just easier to catch a low-hanging fruit. And yes, younger people may not they may be possessing a weed in the wrong places, public places, while older folks know that that's not supposed to be done. You're supposed to put it somewhere private where nobody can see it. So that may be part of the reason for the disparity.
Yeah, it's interesting that the focus is on a younger generation, where some of the common sense about how you maybe use alcohol or anything in the public domain is a little bit different than if you're a little more circumspect about how you tend to use that with your friends and so forth. But it still seems that there's a tendency to, again, target the low-hanging fruit, like you said, that if somebody, I've heard it said that the the thing that would most improve race relations in this country would be to repeal the drug laws, because that is the thing that sets the police and the Black and Latino community apart more than anything else. People patrolling their areas to see, even if they're doing something peaceful that is technically against the law, causes some well understood, very bad feelings about people doing that in their community.
Yeah, personally, I believe that if we legalized most of the drugs, or most of the popular drugs, particularly marijuana and cocaine, that a good 1/2 or more of the police brutality cases would go away. Because I think a lot of the focus of the police, unnecessary police brutality, is because of the drug war.
Right. I think we have a caller coming in now, too, if I could interrupt us. Caller? Yes, please tell us your name and your question.
Well, my name is Roger. I am curious about, I've noticed you mentioned cocaine and marijuana. I don't believe in my lifetime I'll ever see cocaine legalized here in Texas. As far as I don't know. It's so there's very limited medicinal properties but as far as marijuana, we're in a Bible Belt state here, or whatever you want to call it, and I know that a lot of people that are in the church and all, they feel like it's an evil drug, whereas I don't get it. That marijuana is so effective medically, and Texas, it seems like Texas is going to be the last state to ever legalize it, and it really gets me.
Okay.
I couldn't agree with you more. And particularly here we have MD Anderson here, and when patients at MD Anderson, it is suggested that for their chemonausea, that they use marijuana, and they ask, where do I get it? They're told, well, do you know somebody in high school? And that seems to be that. For $10, I'm told that for $10 on any high school campus here, I'm talking about from the most elite private high school to the most open public high school, for $10 you can get a bag of weed. And that to me is so sad. And what is the quality of this weed that you need for your chemonausea? It's such a sad indictment that here we have probably the premier cancer center in the United States, and yet we cannot legally offer them a medicine which we know, we have all the documentation, we know that it helps with chemonausea. And the other thing that has come about, which is even more telling, is they're now finding that marijuana not only helps with chemonausea, but it actually has some cure possibilities. It actually has done some curing of cancer. And the fact that we cannot even get to use it as for good research is just so appalling. There's not one good thing about marijuana prohibition that I've ever found.
And may I add one thing, please?
Sure.
You know, my whole life, I had at one time, not anymore, but I did have problems with alcohol. And, you know, I could drink anytime I want to, get into a car, drive anywhere I want to. Fortunately, I never killed anybody. But, you know, you've got that available any time of the day or night. And marijuana is not that destructive, you know.
There's
It's
been
been
more than
proven.
one case of a person using marijuana to get themselves off of alcohol, off of cocaine. Marijuana, there's been so many good uses of marijuana that we can't possibly go into all of them here, but I know
Sure.
that is true. I know of documented cases of people who've used marijuana to get off of the addiction
Yes.
to alcohol and to a hard
it's
drug.
working in Denver, by the way, you know. So
Hard-
I'll get off, and I appreciate y'all.
Okay.
Thank
Thank you, caller. Appreciate it. Mark, did you have something?
Yeah, I
to add?
wanted to ask about marijuana and epilepsy and seizures, because I had a case involving a client who had seizure problems, and I think you would be able to address that a little bit more.
I personally have not had anybody that has epilepsy with the resulting seizures, but I know of, there's a Williams family here whose little girl needed it for her epilepsy, and they've moved to Colorado so they could get it for their little girl. And I do know that it has helped with epilepsy. I knew of a young man in Beaumont who used it for his epilepsy. He lived out in the country so he could grow his own and use marijuana. And the thing that is so interesting is that one of the things that's been said about marijuana is that it saps people of their ambition. Well, it did not sap my son of his ambition in Oakland. He's been quite a successful entrepreneur in the marijuana business in Oakland. And people have been using it for years with still having the same drive, the same ambition that they've always had.
Very good. I think we have another caller. Caller, would you like to identify yourself and ask your question?
Yes, sir. My name's Charles. I have a son that spent 14 and a half months in Iraq. He came back a totally different person than when he left. He's a very good young man, but he had a lot of issues. He has, since he started smoking marijuana on a full base time, he has quit drinking. He hadn't had a fight in 2 years. He works every day. He has a family. And if there's anything wrong with that, then there's something wrong with our society today.
Thank you so much. I agree. There's not a thing good about the marijuana prohibition that I know about. It has caused so much harm. It has caused so much heartache. It has ruined people. It has ruined families. There have been, not only does it keep people from using the medicine that's good for them, but it has put in prison people for possession of marijuana. My goodness.
Yeah, thank you, caller, for that anecdote. I just think it points up the fact that in many cases you can show that it's marijuana prohibition that has ruined lives and not marijuana itself. And so
Amen.
Once we get rid of the prohibition, maybe we can all chart our own course and choose our own cures for that situation. Thanks again for sharing that with us. I think it's important to realize, for people to realize that, not everybody that is using marijuana is a doper and unmotivated and living a life off of other people and is an unproductive member of society, because that is simply not the case.
Just like everybody that has a glass of wine at night. Their life is not ruined for that.
Right. One thing I'd like to switch our topic to right now in the final few minutes that we have is the issue of hemp. Now, hemp is a derivation or a member of the marijuana family. It is much less rich in the THC compound, which is the psychedelic part of marijuana, but CBD, the cannabidiol oil that is made from hemp, has a lot of the medicinal properties that we're talking about for seizures and other pain relieving and other kinds of things. But somehow or other, in the legislation in the 1930s, we wound up outlawing a major section of the agricultural economy, which was hemp production. Although in 1937, when it was discovered, well, it was outlawed in 1937, there's conspiracy theories abound about why it was. It was either part of Henry Anslinger's war on marijuana, where it was hard to distinguish from a marijuana plant from a hemp plant, or it could have been a conspiracy attributed to William Randolph Hearst, who owned a lot of paper production factories, and hemp was starting to be used as a paper substitute, and he wound up getting on the bandwagon to have it pronounced illegal. But it's interesting, in the wartime, when the U.S. Navy and other branches of the service needed more rope, and hemp was a major component of rope, that they repealed the regulation in wartime, and actually the Department of Defense distributed hemp seeds to American farmers and said, hey, start growing hemp. We need it for the war effort. And hemp is an extremely valuable agricultural commodity that somehow or other got caught up in this marijuana witch hunt, and has since been legalized, although Colorado, I understand now, you can grow hemp again. So maybe that's a...
Also in Kentucky and North Dakota, you can grow hemp.
Is that right? Maybe that's an industry that's going to come back. It has amazing BTU component. If you're into biomass generation of power, it's far more efficient than other biomass, although I think the jury is out on whether biomass generation of power is really efficient at all in terms of its cost. But it also supposedly has great not only medicinal properties for what we've been talking about, but actually nutrition kinds of elements. Can you tell us anything more about hemp, Ann?
I'm not too much aware of what the nutritional values of hemp is.
Okay.
I've read a lot more about how hemp, we now have there's a video out that was put out called Hemp for Victory, which was put out during World War II, and I remember World War II. And actually, a farmer could get a deferment from the draft if they would grow hemp. And,
Okay.
and I remember that was pretty hard to do back in World War II.
I see.
And so there was a real need for it, and the government realized then that they needed to do it, and they I do not know how much of, I know the Hemp for Victory, and I've seen the video, and they did grow hemp, and they grew it so they could make the rope that they need. But hemp, the product hemp has so many uses.
Right. It's really, it's hard to believe we could outlaw an agricultural commodity like that. Of course, we outlawed a weed, so I mean, if you can outlaw a weed, you can probably outlaw a crop
They bring
as well.
the marijuana in for dresses to be made in the United States, but it has to be made it's grown in Canada.
Yeah, I think you can get CBD oil, which is an extract of hemp, which is the helpful medical properties of hemp. It is grown in Canada, and I think they export CBD oil to the United States. And I understand, I'm not sure about this, that CBD oil can be obtained legally in all 50 states now. It's not illegal to do that. You can do that on the internet in any number of places. And actually, if you're a fan of American history, Thomas Jefferson and George Washington both grew hemp on their farms, and according to some historians, that hemp was the main product in the sails on old Ironsides, as well as made up the fabric which the flag that originally was flying on old Ironsides in the Revolutionary War was made of. So it has a ton of very beneficial uses in terms of fabric and rope and other things. Here it says, here as a food source, hemp provides nutritional value unmatched in the plant world. It's a complete protein and contains many essential oils, both combined in ideal ratios for human consumption. Hemp seeds can be processed into cooking oils, ground into flour, and extracted for use in products similar to the soybean, tofu, milk, and so forth. So I don't know that I've ever had the experience of trying any of those culinary delights from hemp, but nonetheless it supposedly has these properties associated with it as well. And it's just inconceivable that we could have a whole section of the agricultural commodity of agricultural commodities that could actually be declared illegal. It actually uses less water per acre of cultivation than any of the competitors in terms of biomass or other positive benefits that it has. So it would also help in that regard as well.
Less pesticide too.
Very drought resistant as well. So it seems to have a lot of things going for it. And I think we shouldn't be that big a deal to, since it's not, somebody said you'd have to smoke a joint as long as a telephone pole in order to get high on hemp, because it's got a very small THC component, and it's basically the CBD component that's so beneficial for its use. And it seems to me it could be another major inroads in terms of commodities and things that farmers could grow and so forth, although you have to watch out for those agribusinesses coming in and taking over the
support
landscape as well.
of industrial hemp was approved in the Republican platform at the past state convention.
Oh, really?
It's in the platform.
Interesting. Okay. Well, I imagine Texas wouldn't be that bad a place to grow hemp, because it does, like I said, it has some drought-resistant capabilities, and in Texas is, that would fit in well with the current climate kinds of things. Maybe we could abate climate change with growing hemp as well. So, or at least we could stop worrying about it if we do the marijuana. Well, we're winding down. Is there any? Does Ramp has a website? And
Correct.
I don't know if we got that up on.
I
your
know
bio
so little
or
about
not.
the website. I think it's the young people who've gotten involved in Ramp that know all this social media and so on and so forth. Because I have not done anything about the website. It's the young people who have many of the YRs. The young Republicans have gotten involved with Ramp. The state president of YRs is on the Ramp's board. So the young people see the hypocrisy in the laws, I think, very clearly. And that's, I'm so grateful to the young people who have taken this issue on, and when they start talking about this, they do it better than I do. I just don't, and I'm very grateful for the young people who have endorsed and support this project.
Sure. I think probably in that particular generation, if you grew up with a number of your friends or people that you knew had actually used marijuana and so forth, it's harder to demonize it as something that's going to destroy everyone's life if they use it, or, oh, you take one puff and you're addicted for life and things. Some of those kind of way over the top kind of scare stories start not playing well. As a matter of fact, probably plays exactly in the opposite direction, that people say, well, yeah, I know something about this, and this is just total BS, and you can't believe anything that the government is telling us about marijuana if that's the tack they're going to take. How do you see this affecting your law practice, Mark, in terms of going forward?
I wish I could say that it would mean that I would have less business, but it's not true at all. I have plenty of business with lots of other criminal cases that I have to deal with,
okay.
not just this one. But it would help the courts and the judicial system quite a bit by legalizing it and decriminalizing it, legalizing it. And now it could also, like you suggested, help my business, that we could do expunging of old records, and that would help my business and other lawyers as well. I'm not going to lie about that, because many people may want those records expunged.
Of course, isn't it also the case that certainly, I'm not sure how drug-related crime or conviction is actually categorized and documented, but certainly a lot of people are forced to steal to support their drug habits. So shouldn't we also expect a decrease in larceny, in other criminal activities where people are trying to get money to support their drug habit?
Well, when drugs are illegal, the price of the drugs go up. And so if it's more expensive, you're more likely to steal than if it's less expensive.
Yeah.
So legalization will reduce the number of theft cases, not increase it, as people would tend to believe.
And also, in terms of some of the actual homicide cases that we see, which are in sometimes, I don't know what percentage of them, are just a simple turf war with drug distribution cartels and people, where the only way they can choose to eliminate their competition is to actually just go out and eradicate them.
That's true. That's true. Very true. That the fact that the drug is illegal causes there to be more crime, not because of the drug itself, but because of the control of the drug.
Right.
And people who are controlling the illegal drug business do use many illegal methods to control the drug business.
Yeah, some of the statistics coming out of Mexico, especially northern Mexico, are just absolutely appalling. People say they can document that 30 to 40,000 Mexicans have been killed as a result of drug cartels warring over turf and distribution rights in northern Mexico. That's a tragedy. I mean, that in itself would, even if it's not in the United States, would be a reason to...
Yeah, it is tragic, and what's interesting is that the number of drug killings along the border has steadily decreased as the number of states and the number of that have medical and legal recreational marijuana has increased. It used to be there was very high, and it has steadily decreased year after year. And I do believe that there is a direct correlation between the two. The government would say otherwise, but I don't think so. I think that it's because of that.
Well, okay, it's time to bring this conversation to a close.
Can I have 2 seconds?
Yeah, sure.
Please, anybody who's listening, who believes what we're saying, call your state rep, call your state senator, and be sure you put a call into Greg Abbott, the governor, and tell them that you want a reform of the marijuana laws in Texas. Thank you.
Okay, very good, Ann.
Thank you.
And thank you to both of my panelists tonight, Ann and Mark, for joining us. And appreciate your input here. I'd like to talk about this issue with other people in the future if we have the opportunity. And I'd like to make a thank you to HMS TV and our awesome, talented production manager, Mark Pirtle, who oversees the production of all these public affairs, public access productions. And Mark, thanks a lot for your help, and we'll hopefully see everyone here again next month. Thanks again for watching.